All right. All right. Let's hit the live button here. Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Yishai Fleisher Show, broadcasting live from Judea to the world. You're a part of it wherever you are. And shalom to a special live stream edition that we're doing today in honor of the Senate confirmation hearing of Governor Mike Huckabee, soon to be Ambassador Mike Huckabee, ambassador to Israel. I think this is a particularly important event, the Senate confirmation hearing, and that is because I think that we're going to have an ambassador that really sees eye to eye with a strong Israel, with a bigger Israel, not a smaller Israel, and with Jerusalem at its capital, with Jewish rights in Judea and Samaria. And so therefore, I am very excited about this Senate confirmation hearing. And I think it's important. I think it's also important, and this is why I'm actually doing this live stream today, because Mike Huckabee being confirmed, he has not yet been confirmed, but he will be confirmed in the Senate, is something that impacts the United States, the U.S.-Israel relationship. But in truth, the words that you hear coming out of Mike Huckabee's mouth have a cultural influence on the rest of the world. And that's why I think this is so important, because the stuff that we're going to hear from Governor Mike Huckabee is stuff that we got to get more people around the world to hear. Everybody's got to hear these amazing words. Everybody's got to hear the way that he sees Judea and Samaria, the way he sees Jewish rights in the land of Israel is the way that so many more people need to see it. And right now, there's so much fighting against Jewish rights in Judea and Samaria. There's so much stuff right now on the internet about South Hebron Hills, and I'll be fighting that tomorrow on a major news show. And there's a lot of people who are against Jewish rights in Judea and Samaria. So when you hear Mike Huckabee speaking out loud, then you're hearing like this strong, committed, historically rooted, biblically rooted, very powerful messaging that really we all need to hear, to mimic his words, and that needs to broadcast out into the world. So to me, it's very important. That's why I'm doing this live with you right now. You can, of course, write me a comment. Let me know where you're from and send blessings. And we will, throughout the show, recognize and connect with your messages. And there are many ways to connect with our show right now. You could like, you could comment, you could subscribe, and you could also support the show in the links in the show description. So let's get to the videotape. But before we do that, let me bring on the co-host for today's show, which is none other than Jake Bennett. Shalom, Jake Bennett, international Israel advocate based in the United States. Shalom and welcome to the show today.
Shalom, Yishai. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. And I'm so. What did you think of the stuff that I said in the beginning here, which is that the issue of the confirmation of Huckabee is not just U.S.-Israel relations, and it's not just, an ambassador to Israel. It's really a whole set of messaging that needs to get out to the world.
Absolutely. It's framing the issues. It's setting the stage and the tone for the dialogue. Before we had in the last administration a lot of concern about how Iran would feel about American actions. And here we have someone who says our first concern is our allies. That's a massive shift.
It is a massive shift. Also, his positions on Judea and Samaria, on a strong Israel, on the end of the two-state solution, on who the bad guys are. My wife, Malka, she pointed out something that's so true, which is just to recognize who bad guys are and just to call them out. That's a big deal in this day and age. It's a big deal in this day and age. And actually, we're going to also hear from somebody else. We're going to hear from Witkoff, and Steve Witkoff, and we're going to hear from him. And some of his messaging is not as clear about who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. So there's going to be a certain tension within the administration to recognize who's good and who's bad. Now, I'm talking about the American administration. Again, I'm broadcasting from Israel. I've got to show Israel's side. I'm here to shine the light of Israel. But on the other hand, when you have a person like Huckabee who recognizes the truth about Israel, recognizes what Israeli strength should be and how it's actually good for this region, that needs to be broadcast even louder.
Can I chime in? Even the basic question that you hear some people ask Huckabee, do you think it's okay? Do you support the right of Jews to live in Judea and Samaria and the West Bank, as they call it, as though there's something immoral about Jews living in their biblical heartland, in their ancestral homeland, and that's their starting point. And you're going to hear it. If we hear that part of the hearing confirmation today, he gets asked this question. What happens if Israel annexes Judea and Samaria, and is that okay? Do you support that? Really what they're asking is, do you support a U.S. ally that gives human rights and civil rights to everybody, being in control of land, which a lot of people for the last 30 years have been pushing be put in control of the PLO, a terrorist organization that suppresses the rights of its own Arab residents and wants to have a complete anti-Jewish apartheid with no Jews allowed. And somehow they think they're coming from a moral stance.
That's right. There's a guy named Ranko Barnesic, and I'm guessing that he might be Czech, and I'm not sure, but he says Huckabee stated Judea and Samaria is not the West Bank. And the reason I'm putting up this comment is because that's what I'm saying. Here comes Mike Huckabee on the stage of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, but in truth, it goes out into the world. And it puts out a different ping. And when I'm on a news show tomorrow, and they're going to be like, well, you do know it's occupied, you've stolen somebody else's land, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to be like, well, the ambassador of the United States to Israel does not think so. And here's what he said on a global stage. Meaning to say it's a much stronger moment for our position and our posture. And I think that's very important. And so people like Mike, who write, yes, annex Judea and Samaria and expel the opposers. Okay. You know what I mean? Mike now has something more to stand on than just his opinion. He's got the opinion of, a major influence on American policy. Let's get to it. Shall we, Jake?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here's Mike Huckabee being questioned on the relationship of U.S. and Israel and the alliance. At the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, a confirmation hearing for Mike Huckabee to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel.
Why is the defense of Israel, the support of Israel, important to America?
Senator, a great question. The truth is, it's been very clear, as expressed by the Iranian government, that Israel is the appetizer and we're the entree. They don't want to stop at Israel. They certainly want to annihilate them. They've said it over and over, and there's an old saying that when people are saying again and again they're going to kill you, you might want to take them seriously. But they've also gone beyond saying they want to annihilate Israel and wipe it off the face of the earth. They've said that their ultimate goal is to first take care of the little Satan, they identify as Israel, and then come after the great Satan. Senator, that's us. And whatever is happening to Israel, it is the canary in the coal mine. These governments, Iran being the most notable, who want to develop a nuclear weapon and who have the audacity to wish to use it to destroy a sovereign Jewish state so that they ultimately could destroy Western civilization. That's why it matters, Senator, and I appreciate your question because I hope people will understand this is not just about Israel. It is about us. And if we don't stand with them, they stand alone. And if they fall alone, we fall next.
All right. So right there, you have an initial stance where Governor Mike Huckabee is pointing out that Iran wants to destroy Israel, but that has an impact because Israel is just a canary in the coal mine or the front line. They'll go after the United States. And he talked about Western civilization, or what I would call freedom-loving civilization, being under attack. And this links up with Marco Rubio's efforts to deport jihadis who are in student visas in the United States and get rid of them and get rid of folks that want to destabilize the United States. There is a civilizational battle. I think you pointed out to me in a conversation off air that what's his name, Murray, has done a great job. Douglas Murray has done a great job pointing out that there's a civilizational battle here. And I think that's what Huckabee was talking about. There's a civilizational battle. Israel's on the front line. We got to support it if we want to support ourselves, if we want to be victorious in that civilizational battle. What do you think, Jake?
Absolutely. It's just moral clarity that we're seeing here. I mean, and what a stark contrast to 10 years ago when the JCPOA came out, the Obama era Iran nuclear deal. If that had proceeded, we'd have gone through the period right now where Iran wasn't allowed to have intercontinental ballistic missiles, where they'd be allowed now all sanctions off, and they can do whatever they want and build their own bomb. And it was like a 10-year window. They're like, okay, well, let's call this a victory because it's the best we could get. That was in an age where negotiators' deal wasn't to stop the bad outcome from happening, but to come to a deal. They're like, hey, we got a deal. We've won. No, the goal was never to get a deal. The goal was to stop them from having nuclear weapons. And now we've got an administration that talks like that and has clarity on
that. Well, it has clarity on that in part, but part of it does not have so much clarity. And we'll hear from Steve Witkoff talking about Qatar.
Yeah.
What seems to me to be quite a naive lack of clarity.
Yeah. You mentioned the Columbia student that's been deported to Louisiana to go through his hearing to be deported. We've had
Mahmoud Khalil.
Yes, we've had a few individuals who have self-deported because they know that they're next. We have one young lady went back to China. We had come out in the news just in the last couple of days, evidence that SJP nationally in the U.S., that's Students for Justice in Palestine, that is a Qatari supported group that active on U.S. college campuses. They had advanced knowledge of the October 7th attacks. 3 minutes before midnight, before the attacks happened, the Columbia SJP that Khalil was responsible for posted. They reactivated their Instagram account and said, "We're back. Stay tuned. There's stuff coming." And then they had, in that same day, they had a toolkit for resistance, and which is a translation of the name of Hamas, by the way. Its name signifies resistance, quote unquote. So when students are calling for resistance, they're calling for Hamas. But they had students who used images of people on hang gliders, and they had this prepared in a toolkit before there was even images from the actual event. So they knew it was coming. They knew that they were coming by air on hang gliders. So we've got an amazing thing happening. Not just the deporting of these activists, but the current administration has already had the Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights announced that they're doing a full investigation on 60 universities that have had active and very concerning SJP chapters and other chapters. They work under various names.
And how much of that funding comes from Qatar?
Over the past 10 years, there's been $6 billion of funding to American universities in total. So it's not just student clubs where there's real opaqueness as to where that funding is coming from, but entire departments, Middle East departments, professors, chairs, etc. So there's a purchasing of influence, and we see this also. We see this in DC. There's a lot of stories and records of Qatar using its influence, and even trying to get in with strong members of strong administrations, and doing it in various ways. Even a few years ago, there was a case where they worked really hard through a guy who's a registered foreign agent for Qatar to bring representatives from major American Jewish organizations to come visit in Qatar. And again, they were purchasing influence. They were explicitly purchasing influence. It was talked about in the press extensively that was their goal, was to purchase influence with Jewish groups to make them less strong in their words about Qatar.
Moshe Herman, my friend, writes, "Truth. I was seeing this 20 years ago, even here, with the weaponizing of professors. So professors were being bought, and we see the power of that Qatari money. Yet Steve Witkoff, who is the president's special envoy to the Middle East, seems to not understand that. Let's watch him talk a little bit about Qatar. He makes it seem like they're just guys trying to figure it out and help out. They're just these good folks trying to be recognized for being peacemakers. Let's take a look.
Peace treaty from the United States. Why? because and all the Middle East, all the
Hold on
GCC.
1 second. Let me start this.
Qatar is a small nation, probably has the highest GDP per capita, per person, right, of anyone in the world. Huge reserves. I think they want stability. I think they want a peace treaty from the United States. Why? Because and all the Middle East, all the GCC countries want that. By the way, this is an interesting point. Everybody thinks the peace treaty is about physical defense. What it's really about is the United States providing a security wrapper so that they're all financeable. Today, you can't borrow money in those countries. So if you want to go do a deal in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, JP Morgan, if they are the hypothetical bank, has to underwrite war risk. They have to underwrite, will the Houthis in Saudi Arabia fire in a hypersonic missile and destroy that AI data center that you just bought for $200 billion? That's a real problem. So a lot of these countries want defense treaties so that they're not just building out of their pocket, they're taking their oil money and they're actually leveraging it and creating a better economy long term. So I think the Qataris want stability. And they don't get enough credit for that motivation. It's a good motivation for their people.
Amen. So but they're often accused, almost universally accused in the U.S. media of being agents of Iran.
Yeah, it's
collaborators.
It's preposterous. They're a Muslim nation. In the past, they've had some views that are a little bit more radical.
Yep.
From an Islamist standpoint than they are today, but it's moderated quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that they're an ally of the United States. There's no doubt about that. And
they have a huge air base there. I mean, US.
By the way, and they pay for every dollar of it. They don't have their hand out for a thing. There is nothing that the United States has to fund with regard to that airbase. That's pretty unusual.
It's amazing.
Right? So they fund everything. They don't ask for much. I think I had a conversation with General Eric Kurilla, who runs CENTCOM, an amazing man. And I said to him, what do you think of the Qataris? He says, they're special people. So the people in the know that they're good, decent people.
I got to say, I'm sorry. I'm alternating between cringing and laughing because I can't help but cringe and laugh. He talks about this air base, the Al Udeid air base, and says, how amazing they are that they're funding this themselves. He doesn't realize that he's talking about the payoff right there. They put an airbase southwest of Doha. Oh, right after October 7th, they said, hey, listen, we want you to make a 10-year commitment, America, to keep this here. We're going to take all these temporary structures. We're going to build them more permanent. We'll make them missile proof. And America's like, great, missile proof buildings and barracks for our great airfield, right there in the Middle East. What could be better? That's the payoff. That's what we talk about, compromise. That's how they compromise a country. When America has interests that might go one way and Qatar has interests that go another way, and Qatar can say, hey, we've got a place for you to put all your warplanes and you put them here. Now the American interests are compromised. Then they didn't let America use that base when they needed to do strikes in the Middle East. So I've been told. I was talking earlier today with an expert, an associate over at Middle East Forum, who was telling me, yeah, you can use those bases if you want to fight somewhere, some non-Muslim countries, but not here.
Right. And somebody named Grant Salisbury writes, he's tainted. He's had business dealings with Qatar.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. He had a building in New York that he sold for, I think it was $623 million to a Qatari royal family's investment arm. There was a similar story that happened with Jared Kushner, where he actually got bailed out of a building. I think it was 666 Madison, if I'm remembering the name right. That was about $1.1 billion. Now, he was at a cryptocurrency conference in the UAE. Witkoff was recently, because his sons and Trump's sons are involved in a crypto business called World Liberty Finance. How involved is Qatar in that? I don't know, but there has been some connection there. So
everybody knows in Gaza that the pro-Hamas television network is Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is a Qatari-funded, Qatari-run, Qatari-located news network that teaches jihadism. Anti-Israelism is like the day in, day out, minute by minute, and it's anti-American as well.
Absolutely.
And you have this arm of teaching. So we know what they do on campus. We know what they do in media.
Yeah.
But, but for Witkoff, they're pals. And so let's just see one more video, a short video of Witkoff talking with Tucker. Go ahead.
Well, just to expand on that, not only is Al Jazeera the propaganda mouthpiece of Hamas that has made numerous blood libel accusations of Israel targeting that hospital story when there was an explosion outside of a hospital and they said it was Israeli shelling. Well, no, it was Hamas. But not only all of that, not only the professors of American universities that have local buildings and places in Doha, who have come out. There was a story not so many days ago I saw on a professor of Northwestern just going on and on about how Hamas is in the right, Israel's in the wrong. On top of all of that, how about all the money that Qatar funded Hamas with? To say that, I mean, they're funding Hamas outright. There were $300 million sent to Hamas right before October 7th. And then you'll get some people who will take a crazy weird zigzag and say, oh, but Bibi let it through. So Bibi's as guilty as Hamas. No, there's a difference between the partners of the extortionist, Islamic extremist, terrorist, jihadist group Hamas and those being extorted. Bibi let money through. Israel let money through, but it was an extortion.
Maybe there's enough blame to go around. Okay,
there's blame to go around. Sure.
So Qatar is funding Hamas, and Bibi let it through. Well, bad on both of them.
Absolutely.
Let's see one more video here from Witkoff talking with Tucker.
Yeah,
small nation probably has the highest GDP better economy long term. So
now we saw this. Yeah, we saw this one. Okay. There is more stuff from Witkoff, and he's just like, yeah, they just want good things. Where's that video? I had another video from him where he was talking about, where is that? Oh, is that Qatar? Which one did I? Well, let's watch him explaining a little bit.
There's one that's 43 seconds long. If you've got that one,
I'll take a look. Hold on. There's one that he's talking on.
The 2 minute one where 2 minutes and 1 second where they talk about how Gaza is destabilizing the Middle East. And
I'll look for that in a second. In the meantime, watch this one from Fox.
Just home. I was
is broken there. I know that you said Hamas has been unreasonable in trying to respond to another round of the next phase of a ceasefire. Where do we go from here? What are the odds you get them back to the table and get these hostages home?
Well, I certainly hope we get everybody back to the table and get the hostages home. I was in Doha. I met with many of the Arab leaders at the Arab Summit. I thought we had a deal, an acceptable deal. I even thought we had an approval from Hamas. Maybe that's just me getting duped. But I thought we were there, and evidently we weren't. So this is on Hamas. The United States stands with the state of Israel. There's just that's a 100% commitment, and we've expressed that. Hamas had every opportunity to demilitarize, to accept the bridging proposal that would have given us a 40 or 50-day ceasefire where we could have discussed demilitarization and a final truce. There were all kinds of opportunities to do that, and they elected not to. And this becomes the alternative. And it is unfortunate. Do I think would we be amenable to a reach out from Hamas? Of course we would be. And no different than in the Russian conflict. We want to end the killing. But we need to be clear who the aggressor is here, and that is Hamas.
Well, and quickly, I want to ask you before.
Okay.
Couple of things on that. Can I make an analogy? Can you imagine World War II ends and we say, we're okay with leaving the Nazis in power as long as they demilitarize. We don't want them to keep taking over Europe. They can keep on spouting their Nazi ideology about the white race is superior, the Übermensch and the Untermensch, and that's fine. That's fine. We're okay with that. That's a demilitarized Hamas. We're okay with anti-Semitism, Nazism, jihadism. Just hand over your weapons. Why is that okay? That's not what Israel needs. That's not what Israel wants. That's not what the world needs.
And that's not what the president of the United States has articulated.
Right.
And the president of Israel and prime minister of Israel as well, with the destruction of Hamas and Hamas ideology. Like his whole take on Qatar, Hamas, he's just somebody wrote here. Somebody who wrote very clearly. This sounds weak. There's like a weakness about it. It's like okay, we got to understand them. We got to contain them. We got to feel for them. They're misunderstood. They're not quite understood. They just want peace. They just want normalization. They just want to be recognized. And the attitude is not one of, hey, these people want to destroy us. Look what they're doing. This is not commensurate with Rubio's discussion on deporting jihadists. It's not the same.
There's something missing. There's something big missing. And he admits it in his interview with Tucker, where he says, actually, I haven't talked to any Hamas people directly.
Hold on. I think I have that one.
Intermediary.
I think I have that one. Here's the one that you wanted me to play.
But
that could all be reversed.
A lot of people have been killed in Gaza, a lot of kids. And that's inflaming the populations of some of these countries, again, specifically Egypt and Jordan, to such a point that those governments could fall and cause like massive chaos, including in Europe. Is that a factor? As that worry, is that a factor?
Huge factor. It's a huge factor. I think King Abdullah in Jordan has done an amazing job of figuring out how to deal with that instability. But, in some respects, he's been lucky. I think Egypt is a flashpoint. All the good that happened in the Ayoun election because of Nasrallah and Sinwar being eliminated, that could all be reversed if we lose Egypt. What happened in Syria was a huge data point for the region. I mean, getting him out, Assad, was a big deal, and no one ever expected it. But Egypt has a very restive. I want to say the stats in Egypt are huge unemployment among under 25, like 45% unemployment. Yeah, a country can't exist like that. They're largely broke. They need a lot of help. If we have a bad event in Egypt, it could take us back. And Saudi Arabia also large. He's an amazing leader, MBS. But people are worried about his young population and how they're looking at this whole thing, which is why we've got to solve Gaza. Because if we solve Gaza, which is the conditioned precedent to Saudi normalizing, then Saudi can normalize. And if they normalize, we're building on the framework of the Abraham Peace Accords, which of course is the
Can we say that last point just needs to be pointed out here? He's repeating a Biden State Department talking point.
He's got Biden talking points.
He's got Biden talking
points. Right. If you just do the right thing in Israel by giving away some land to the jihadis, the Saudis will make peace with Israel and everything. The region will be stabilized. That is such malarkey.
Yes, and it was so over and over again. There were leaks from Saudi Arabia saying that's not our position. I mean, that was coming out throughout the past year and a half. Saudi Arabia is saying that's not our position. We just can deal with Israel directly. We don't care about Gaza is not our priority. That's Biden's priority. And the Biden administration kept saying, no, we're not going to help you unless you make it your priority. That's an American leftist anti-Israel talking point. And somehow Witkoff, someone's whispering in his ear, and that's the framing that they're giving him.
This is look what Xavier writes. He writes, Witkoff is an unregistered agent of Qatar. He belongs in prison for violating FARA. For sure, it's clear that he is not the kind of messaging that we think is going to solve the crisis in the Middle East, help the Gazan people. What he is proposing is that the Qataris are okay. They just need to. I don't have that video where he just says like the Qataris just want to be recognized. They just want to be recognized as peacemakers.
You know what he says also? There was a clip where he says, Tucker, you're not the same person now that you were when you were 35. Now that you're 55, you're different. I'm different. Chulani's different in Syria. He's not the guy he was when he was an ISIS affiliate. Now he's changed the name of his organization. He's not an ISIS guy. Did anyone notice the news a couple of weeks ago when 1,000 Christians got killed by Chulani's forces in Syria? It was in the way back pages of American mainstream media.
Yeah.
People don't want to hear it.
Right. Okay. His way of thinking is to appease jihadism, appease Qataris, appease Hamas, and then tell us that that's what the Saudis want, when the Saudis actually want us to crush the jihad, so it doesn't come to their shores either. All right. So
The difference between him and his boss is Trump is a Churchill. He wants to win. And he's got talking points from a Neville Chamberlain. He's willing to appease and find common ground and leave the bad guys in place. And that's in sum what we're looking at over and over.
Let's get back to today's Senate confirmation hearing of Governor, Ambassador, also I think Reverend Mike Huckabee, and musician Mike Huckabee. Let's watch another clip of him answering questions today at the Senate.
Israel, in many ways, is a reflection of our own heritage and history. It is the Judeo-Christian law that there is a right and that there is a wrong, upon which all of Western civilization is built, but certainly our system of government. There is no country across the globe that more mirrors our own struggle and our own level of democracy than does the State of Israel. And it's one of the reasons that it is a natural ally. The spiritual connections between your church, mine, many churches in America, Jewish congregations to the State of Israel, is because we ultimately are people of the book. We believe the Bible. And therefore, that connection is not geopolitical. It is also spiritual. And to ignore that, to deny that, would be to make it very difficult for us to ever understand how to go forward in a relationship with them.
So the reason I think that clip is important in general is because I think that Israel should be promoting itself more as a biblical country, a country where the Bible happened, a country where biblical heritage happened. I was actually touring today a Indiana state representative in Hebron and Judea, and I was telling him it's like Denmark. Denmark's got Lego, so when you show up in Denmark, they're like, "This is part of our brand, Lego." Right? You show up in Australia, they're like, "Part of our brand is kangaroo." And when you show up in Israel, that should be part of your brand. And the problem is, I think that Israel has done a great disservice to the world, is that we took our foot off the gas of biblical branding, biblical marketing, biblical teaching, biblical seeing ourselves as the Bible people of the Bible, land of the Bible, and promoting that. I always tell people, I just had a good friend, Baruch, he's in the United States. He was in Washington. I said, you got to go to see the Museum of the Bible because it's a beautifully done thing. And also we should see what we don't have in our country, which is a Museum of the Bible. So I very much, connect with this ambassador and look forward to working with him to help Israel have a more biblical appeal. And biblical consciousness. And I think he's going to be able to really work on that. That's the way he sees it. Obviously, and a lot of people point out, we don't share religions. But as I always tell, good Christian folk that want to be part of the rebirth and revival of Israel, I say, let's agree to agree. Let's agree to agree.
Amen.
Let's agree to, let's talk about the things that we can share.
Yeah.
And that's very important. And by the way, be careful of the boundaries. Let's respect each other's boundaries. Like, don't try to missionize. We don't accept that. We don't want to be a Christian country. We don't believe in the Christian text, but we have a lot that we share. And let's push that out there, and let's push out Israel and Jerusalem as a light to the world, the way really millions of people. And by the way, there are many Muslims, not the majority, but there are many Muslims who also want to see it that way, want to see Israel strong. I think there's more and more of those.
And if you go back to the beginning of 100 years ago, at the end of World War I, it was exactly that recognition of Jewish indigeneity and history and authenticity in the land of Israel that led the world to say, now that we're decolonizing and shutting down empires and shutting down the Ottoman Empire, we're recognizing this place as the Jewish people's ancestral homeland that they can go back to and rebuild and reestablish their sovereignty on. That was a massive act of decolonization, which is a word that kids at Columbia University and Harvard who've, never cracked open a Bible and don't know Jewish history or identity can't relate to. They think that the Arab Empire that stretched across the Middle East and North Africa, talk about colonization and imperialism and conquest, that whatever they got done between 600 and 700 of the Common Era, that's got to be fixed in stone. But yeah.
Yocheved Yo writes, who is Huckabee supposed to work with from the Abrahamic region? What does he have to look out for as he helps build the region, good or bad? And she throws in $18 as a super chat. It's so awesome to super chat. Super chat is a great way to send your blessings to this effort that we're doing here on this channel and in this conversation of trying to shine the light of Israel out into the world. Well, I think that actually looks like, he's going to have a lot of good people to work with. He's going to have a lot of good people to work with. And certainly a big chunk of Israel, and also an Israel that has awoken after the October 7th massacre. Jake, yesterday, I was down in the Gaza envelope. Jake, I want to tell you,
yeah,
I had a really, I don't want to say it wasn't life changing because it didn't change anything for me, but it was definitely like a life event. I was down, my work had a special tour to the Gaza envelope communities. And I've done a little bit, but not a lot. And so we went down there. And one of the things that we did was that we went to Be'eri, which is one of the hardest hit Gaza communities, Gaza periphery communities. They lost 106 members of the community to brutal murder on October the 7th. So check this out. They have like 50 houses that are just sitting there like burnt out because the terrorists didn't just kill. They also decided to burn everything. And we go into one of the houses with the guy whose house it is. And he's walking on one leg and one prosthetic leg. And his name is Avida Becher. He's kind of well known. And he sits down in a chair.
He lost his son.
He lost a son and a wife.
Yeah.
In the
I've seen him interviewed on
bomb room.
TV. Yeah, powerful.
And he's sitting down in a room in a house where like 100 people, and we're in a fully burnt out house. It's just crudded out with its all original stuff still there. He sits down on a chair, and for an hour and a half inside of a burnt house, gives us the speech of what happened. And he tells us about how they locked themselves in this bomb room and how the terrorists are shooting, they're throwing grenades in, and they're doing it all day. They're waiting to kill them. They are not being satisfied with it being locked. And finally they shoot and they hit his son in both shoulders. And his son is laying there and he's bleeding out. And then they shoot his wife with one bullet, got through the ribs, hit the lungs, and she was dead in a few minutes. And his daughter and him survived. He lost this leg. And then the pinnacle was when he says to us, my son, he starts the shallow breathing. And he just says to me, says Avida, he goes, Dad, bury me with my surfboard. And I mean, it was just like, and he was like, and he said that his son passed away right there. And then he said, I knew immediately that he was in a better place, but I was happy about that, but I just missed them. And he's tearing up and crying throughout this whole thing. He's not some tough guy, but the main thrust of his talk there, again, do you understand what I'm saying?
These guys are sentimental when they're losing their loved ones, their wives, their kids. He's an amazing speaker, and I've heard him speak because he said something really, really powerful. And I heard him say it twice on channel 14 and I think on channel 12 in Israel. He said, thank God that the attack happened here first and not in Judea and Samaria.
Right.
And he says, and how can I say that? What a horrible thing to say, right? I lost my wife, I lost my son. But if it had happened there, I would have said, well, I'm magia lem. Maybe they deserve it. They chose to live there. He said, but us, we're the peaceniks. We're the ones who have been telling the Gazans, hey, let's give you more and more work permits. Come into our towns, come into our communities. And we're the believers in peace, that if only we can show them enough that we want to live in peace, that they'll live in peace. He said, so thank God they hit us, because now we know there is no getting through to these people.
Right. And that's exactly the point that I was going to make, which is that I already knew he thought this, but like you could see that he's part of this former Israeli left who is coming to grips with the fact that the way to deal with them is to push them back, not to do this Witkoff, like, you just got to understand them. They just want to be recognized. They just want to recognize us as peacemakers. Like, get out of here, man. Understand what we're dealing with. Stop being fooled. Stop being duped. Stop being duped, okay? Or stop being sold out to interests.
Can I jump on that?
Well, just let me put this up, which is Rebecca writes, ghetto mentality.
Yeah.
There really is. There's this big fight always between ghetto mentality and redemption mentality. And go ahead.
Yeah, there is. And while there's this cohort of Israeli society that is they've woken up about Hamas. They've really woken up, but they're still pushing this BS narrative when it comes to the PLO. Right. And we heard this in today's confirmation hearing for Mike Huckabee. Senator Ted Cruz talked when he was asking questions. He said, I got a report here that somehow took ages to get to me and never came out under the last administration, of what the PLO's been saying in Arabic every day since October 7th, applauding it, cheering it, funding everyone who carried it out. Their Fatah guys participated in the attack on Nir Oz, and the video came out on that day on Telegram on October 7th, and you can go and watch it on Palestinian Media Watch. And they never condemned that. They never condemned any of this. And they were talking about a unity government with Hamas from the beginning. And this is where you get to, again, the problem with that thing that Witkoff was describing of, hey, if they demilitarize, okay, look, the PLO is militarized. They're sitting on 500,000 illegal rifles on top of their security forces. Their security forces are being armed by, trained by the United States, supposedly to do counterterror, but really they're building up for the big attack. They're waiting for their October 7th, and everybody knows it. And I say everybody knows it. Those of us who listen to them know it. And right. And there was something that was said before by Huckabee, when they tell you they want to kill you, listen to them. That's right. That was one of the main lessons that former Prime Minister Menachem Begin used to say, is our lesson from the Holocaust is when they tell you they want to kill you, believe them. And so we still have Israelis that don't believe it when it comes to the PLO. Can I just add on that? Yeah.
Avidat Becher is waking up, and people like him are waking up. There is an awakening. And the thing is, I find that the reason there's ghetto mentality is because people don't want to face the music. They don't want to always deal with it. Yes, wishful thinking or wishful
enemy
unthinking.
On the other side of the fence thinks the way that we think.
No, it's like I don't want to open up the can of worms. Maybe that's a better, like I don't want to go there. I know there's something dark and sinister there, but if I go there, I have to deal with it. I have come to the conclusion that the biggest aspect of ghetto mentality that we have to defeat is a lack of wanting to govern.
Yes.
That's what I've come to the conclusion, that the biggest sin that Israel has in its DNA is that it doesn't want to lishlot, to govern strongly. It doesn't want to be a Middle East governing country. It wants to be like a little reservation governing itself, but it does not want to be a big governing country. It doesn't want to govern the other. It doesn't want to deal with it. It's not comfortable with it. It doesn't want to look at it in the eye. It doesn't want to deal with these people. It doesn't want to look at them. And therefore it kind of turns a blind, ear and blind eye to it. And it looks away, while in the meantime, this monster keeps growing within. And it's a monster in criminality, and it teaches children jihadism, et cetera, and prepares for the next October 7th, cheers October 7th, is jihadist. So, we have a problem. We have to look at it.
Yeah. Can I say there's something ironic, really ironic that, American Jews, and I think also Israeli Jews, we love the expression never again. And we love to say we don't tolerate Nazism, right? But it's so not true,
Right.
because we tolerate it on our campuses in America, and we tolerate it from the Palestinian Authority. I mean, yes, it's Nazism married with jihadism. The same demonization of Judaism, of Jews, of Jewish culture, of Jewish character. It's Nazism, and we tolerate it and we fund it. And I say, when I say we, I mean both America's funding the PA and Israel's funding the PA, and Israel was even funding Hamas, as we talked about earlier. So we've got a massive problem where we're lacking the moral clarity to say we're not going to fund Nazism and jihadism anymore. And if you just stopped funding it, I mean, these guys would go away.
And that's again why I think it's important to have this live stream today about Huckabee, because he is a force for moral clarity. And he says it. And here's a guy who, under oath in the Foreign Affairs Committee in Congress, he's not giving you these kind of milquetoast wavering answers. There's a clarity, as a moral clarity. That's what you said, and I think that's very important. Let's get back to just another segment or two from Mike Huckabee in today's confirmation hearing.
Imagine under any circumstances that any right-minded person would find it acceptable to support or to even acknowledge that there was justification in any way for the massacre of innocent civilians on October the 7th. If I'm confirmed, I will be absolutely clear to carry the president's policies. They have been clear that Hamas will have no future in Gaza. It can't. This was not simply a cold-blooded murder in which people came across the borders and shot innocent people. They massacred them. And they did it in the way that was most physically painful and in the way that was most personally humiliating. And worse, they videotaped themselves doing it because they were proud of it, and they published it with pride. And they announced repeatedly that they would do it again. Hamas is not a government, it's not a standing army, it is a terrorist organization, and they acted like it. And they must be treated as such. And if confirmed, I would hope that this unfortunate, horrific war that has resulted in many, many deaths, including Americans, the taking of hostages for a longer period of time than even the hostages in 1979 were taken during the Iranian takeover, that all of that could come to an end and there could be accountability for what was done to Jewish people on October the 7th of 2023.
So here's a guy who's running to be ambassador, and he's like, yeah, I'm here to, like, maybe if I would put words in his mouth, the stuff that we said is like, I'm here to broadcast some moral clarity. I'm here to make the responsible parties take responsibility. I'm here to destroy them, to punish them. And that's powerful. That's powerful stuff. As opposed to, check this out. I found the video that I wanted to play for you before. Here is the video of Steve Witkoff talking about the Qataris, what's in their sweet little hearts. Here it is.
Wait, just before you hit
play. The Qataris, they're criticized for not being well motivated. It's preposterous. They are well motivated. They're good, decent people. What they want is a mediation that's effective, that gets to a peace goal.
Right. So that's there's even a longer video where it explains that, like, they just want to be recognized as peacemakers.
Yes. Yeah. I just wanted to say what Mike Huckabee was saying. That's the kind of talk that will save Western civilization. Period.
Right.
Because without that, I mean, look at this country. I'm here in America. Look what's happening look what's happening on campuses in America. I recommend to everyone in the audience, go find the movie October 8th. If you still have it in your neighborhood, it's doing a limited release. It's around, I think, still through this week, and it is going to show you more than what you saw in the newspaper headlines and the Instagram little clips. You're going to see on the full screen what life was like walking through those encampments, and hear interviews with Jewish students on U.S. campuses, and the kind of vile discrimination and hatred that they were subjected to. It's and you'll also see the administrators of these campuses, including Ivy League campuses, excusing it, making excuses for it. And you'd never see that towards any other group in America, for sure. If you had groups on Columbia campus or on Harvard or MIT or UPenn saying lynch the blacks, no, they would be shut down and thrown off.
Right.
Okay, but they can say globalize the Intifada, localize bring the Intifada here, and you see students saying that over and over again, and holding up signs with this red triangle target saying this is the next target. They're saying lynch this one, lynch this Jew, lynch these people, and there's no action taken. But what we've been lacking for the last year and a half is this kind of a voice, like we heard from future Ambassador Mike Huckabee. I'm looking forward to him being America's ambassador to Israel and bringing this kind of clarity every single day.
Moral clarity, total victory is possible. If you want to be a person who's part of the fight for Israel, join us at fightforisrael.org. A great way to support the many projects that we have. No, that's not the one. The many projects that we have, which is the Biblical Highway, spreading the Abrahamic faith, restoration of Israeli holy sites, getting tractors to farmers in the Holy Land, broadcasting truth and courage. It's easy, it's fun, and we are appreciative of your help. It makes a difference. From $5 to $500, it makes a difference to us, and we appreciate you. And when you donate to fightforisrael.org, you could go to sleep at night knowing that you are a fighter for Israel, which is something to be very proud of. Jake Bennett and myself served in the Israeli army, and if you find a way to be a fighter for the land of Israel, that is a great gift. That's a great gift. So please check out fightforisrael.org. Another way to do it is buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. And most importantly, please like, subscribe, and comment, and be part of our really daily broadcasting. I still have one more video of Mike Huckabee from today's Senate confirmation hearing. Let's take a listen and see if we have any thoughts on it.
Great tragedy is that it's hard to have a peaceful solution that involves a future for the Palestinians when they quench any hope of real democracy for their people. Abbas is now in the 20th year of his 4-year term. As we think about that, one has to ask, how many years does a person get for a 4-year term without an election, without some transfer of power, without empowering the people to speak for themselves? That's part of the real challenge that is faced in the Middle East. With the ongoing doctrine where compensation is given to those who murder Jews, parks and streets are named for those who do it, pensions are given to the families of those who are killed in the line of killing Jews. Senator, that's a difficult pathway to peace. I would further just mention that if, in fact, there is going to be a peaceful direction, we have to accept that something isn't working. And the two-state solution, the notion that everyone's going to live together, toast marshmallows around the campfire, singing Kumbaya, and it's going to happen in our lifetime, is not going to happen if one of the sides doesn't believe the other one has a right to exist and continues to say, from the river to the sea. And so that's why it becomes a challenge. I have every confidence that Secretary Rubio, and especially every confidence that President Trump, wants to see a genuine, long-lasting peace for everyone in the Middle East. And it will be a privilege to serve the president to try to work toward that.
There's a lot there. You know, he said a lot of things. You know, he first talked about, you know, the nature of the lack of democracy in the Arab world, and certainly under the Palestinian Authority. And then he went on to hint that, you know, giving away land to our enemies is dumb and it's never going to work out. He could have, you know, he could have said even stronger. I think he believes even stronger, but it's still a Senate confirmation hearing. And then he talked about he didn't say the word. He pay for a sleigh. That's right. We're talking about October 7th. If we're upset about it, the PA paid and pays for the murderers that
that perpetrated October 7th.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
So
and more than that, October 7th is like that was a big flash. But you've had ongoing terror attacks that have been paid for by the PA for 3 decades, and you've got over the past 2 years repeatedly in their own broadcast to their own people, the Palestinian Authority top level people are saying 60% of these attacks are being carried out by our people, by our security forces, who they don't mention get their weapons and their training from the U.S. government with Israeli. Okay, so when do you say enough's enough? Because you've had how many killed in these terror attacks? You're talking about a few hundred shooting attacks every year. You're talking about many thousands of stone throwing attacks, which I've seen the pictures. I know you have too of women and babies with their skulls split open from these stone throwing attacks. They're no joke. No. And Molotov cocktail attacks, etc. You've got a war going on, and all the Jews living in the biblical heartland are just waiting for the PA to decide that the time's right for their October 7th, and they shouldn't be allowed to do it.
That's right. And they shouldn't be not allowed to do it. And Israel should not allow them to do it. Meaning to say, we're the ones who back to governance. We have to govern. We have to govern this land. We have to be strong here. We have to hold on to our land. We have to not allow jihadism to rule here. And we should not allow the evil of brainwashing children to rule here. And we should not allow foreign influences like the European influences
and the UN and UNRWA.
That's right.
I mean, if you want moral clarity, I keep seeing these articles, and it annoys me almost every day where I see these articles that say, oh, people have said several people at UNRWA were involved in October 7th. Several people. Every single school, every single mosque, every single hospital, every single building of UNRWA was a Hamas command and control base or a weapons depot or a missile launch site. UNRWA should be declared a terrorist organization side by side with Hamas by every civilized country in the world, period.
And that leads us also to the question of, do you recognize that evil at home? Does the United States recognize that, unlike Witkoff here, do they recognize that these guys inside of the United States, inside of that country, there's jihadis that want to undermine that country and not let this thing metastasize? Here is Rubio, Secretary of State Rubio, in a video that I've shown before, talking about getting rid of pro-Hamas, pro-jihad, anti-America, anti-Israel folks on American campus, getting rid of them, deporting them. Let's watch this video.
United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, as on a visitor's visa. Okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student, and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities. I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out. It's as simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way. So when you apply for a student visa or any visa to enter the United States, we have a right to deny you for virtually any reason. But I think being a supporter of Hamas and coming into our universities and turning them upside down and being complicit in what are clearly crimes of vandalization, complicit in shutting down learning institutions. There are kids at these schools that can't go to class You pay all this money to these high-priced schools that are supposed to be of great esteem, and you can't even go to class. You're afraid to go to class because these lunatics are running around with covers on their face, screaming terrifying things. If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in. And if you do it once you get in, we're going to revoke it and kick you out.
Amazing.
Yeah, right. That's why I played this video, because you talk about moral clarity. There's some moral clarity, and this moral clarity, you know, I when I see it being heard again, we heard different stuff from Witkoff, but this was moral clarity. I would like to see some of that moral clarity in Israel, which is nobody's got a right to live with Nazi ideology in our land. This is the Jewish state. We can't have Nazis living in the Jewish state. Hello. And we shouldn't give our land away to our enemies. Duh. You know? So, you know, it's obvious to me that there needs to be a wake-up call in Israel as well. And we have to use this moment, this Trump moment, this Huckabee moment, this Rubio moment, this Hegseth moment. And I don't mean to say that the United States controls what's happening here. I mean to say there is a window of consciousness, and it's time to utilize that consciousness to push back on these forces. And right now in the South Hebron Hills, there is a tremendous amount of Euro money and Euro trash folks making a lot of trouble for our decent and beautiful farmers. And I know many of them, and I support many of them. Many of our farmers,
the farmers,
Jewish farmers,
not the Euro trash.
No, not the Euro trash. I support them getting the heck out of here. I support a Rubio policy on the Euro trash in our country. You don't have a right to be here. You're anti-Israel. Get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
Jake, I want to thank you so much for being with me. If I can ask you to stick around for just another few minutes, and we'll ask our operator, Yo, to put out some comments that we could look, including some anti-Israel comments are also kind of welcome, you know, to a limited extent. Let's put out a few comments if we can. Says Carlos, I love Israel and love our people, but I'm glad that you unappreciative clowns.
Thanks, Carlos, you sweet boy.
I don't know what what's an unappreciative clown are not in charge of her government. You'd all be swimming by now if not for the United States. But I'm not sure what the critique is. Who's not appreciative?
Because he's saying, I think that that if not for the U.S., Israel wouldn't be able to defend itself.
Are we? Did we say anything anti-Israel, anti-United States? I think Israel should have a good relationship with the United States. But
Carlos, 80% of Americans support Israel. I mean, if it were just the people that were in charge of U.S. policy towards Israel, it would be an amazing thing. There is.
I think Carlos just misunderstood what we were saying. I think he just misunderstood. I think he thought that. I just think he misunderstood.
Okay,
you know,
I don't know.
When America acts well towards Israel, it's a blessed country. When Israel acts well towards Israel, it's a blessed country. When Israel acts badly against the Jewish people, it's not blessed. And when America acts badly against Israel, it's not blessed. America was not blessed when it was under Biden. That's not a blessing to try to shrink it to Israel.
Obama or Carter, when it comes
to Clinton or Carter. That's right.
Yeah,
Israel shrinkers. Israel shrinkers not welcome.
When you're appeasing the jihadists who are trying to destroy Israel and destroy the Jewish people, things don't go well, and that's right. Not what America's about. When America is like Rubio and Huckabee and former head of State Department Mike Pompeo, great things happen.
All right,
but America and Israel need to each be strong in their own right and pursue their interests, and then good things happen.
Rebecca says, Jake, I love the maps you have there. Jake is a big map guy. He's a big map guy.
Yeah.
Now we all like the one that's in the back right, the big Israel. That's a healthy Israel. All right, let's keep going. Let's see some other comments here. Let's see some other comments that make sense for us. Monica says, a wise Jewish woman that worked on another Israeli administration said the first mistake was to make the difference between Hamas and Palestine. No, that's not the first mistake. The first mistake was giving away the Sinai to Egypt. That was the first mistake. Actually, the first mistake was allowing the war of attrition the day after the 6-Day War. That's the root of the beginnings of the evil. Because the day after the 6-Day War, when they started shooting again, you had to crush them again. That would have been, that's the root of the evil. That was the root of the evil, was right after the end of the 6-Day War. And, Jake, do you
And
have
that built up to the Yom Kippur War,
Right, exactly.
which again, Israel could have struck first and saved about 3,000 of its soldiers' lives. But again, there were competing interests. Kissinger wanted Israel to bleed a little, and he wanted to shrink Israel. Okay, yeah, there have been mistakes along the way.
Jake, in the just 1 second with this comment, Jake, the scroll of Esther. So my son gave me an amazing insight.
Yeah.
There's this wife of Haman, of Haman. She said the first time when Haman comes to her and he's like, Mordecai's making me crazy. I can't stand the Jew, Mordecai. So she's like, hang him. But the second time, after Haman is forced to parade Mordecai in the streets, so she says, well, if Mordecai is of the Jewish people, then you're going to lose to him. So my son explained to me what was really happening there. What she said was she actually launched in the second version, the second time, she launched another anti-Semitism. The first one is like, kill them all. That's a classic Hitlerian anti-Semitism. But when she can't kill them all, she's like, oh yeah, they control everything. I know you can't defeat them because, they're in charge of the media and they're in charge of the banks. So yeah,
I read that differently. That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
This is the thought that my son gave to me, that she actually launched another form of anti-Semitism when the Jews are strong. So she's like, yeah, they're strong. They own everything. Of course you can't defeat them. I mean, it's a Mearsheimer type thing.
Sure. Interesting. Because I read that as her saying, wait a minute, we've made a mistake. These are a holy people. You will not win. You will not win if you try to destroy God's chosen people. They're there for a reason. That's how I read it. I thought she was recognizing the error in her ways, but that's an interesting. That was from Elazar?
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's keep going with a few more comments here. Shani says, do you see Israel taking back Gaza in the near future? You damn straight. You better believe it.
What's the alternative?
Yeah.
What's the alternative? Yeah.
Native Americans are coming together and meeting with rabbis. God is getting everyone who loves him in place. Amen and yahey.
Okay.
All right. We are moving ahead. You visit reservations from time to time in Arizona. You've been to places like that, eh?
I haven't, but I had an indigenous rights spokesman out in Arizona just recently. Our mutual friend Ryan Bellerose came in and gave 4 talks in the span of a few days here.
Did he rock people's like?
He was great. He spoke to high school kids, college kids. He spoke to general Jewish audience. He spoke to a left-leaning Jewish audience. And everyone loved him, and they loved his message and what he had to say, which is, he's coming as an indigenous Native American from Canada, saying, I recognize the Jewish people, their identity, their history, and their rights to the land. And as an indigenous rights activist himself, and from a family of indigenous rights activists, he said, I salute you, I support you, and I want to strengthen you, chazak v'it chazek to the Jewish people.
David Bergman writes, guys, what do you think? What do you think? Would there be any value if Israel was to frame 7th of October not as a terrorist act, but as an act of war from political Islam, as well as 11th of September?
It's both. I think they both are. Absolutely.
I mean, I just want to say, how should I say this? It's hard for me to explain this, but we need to, some element of Israel has got to be not outward facing. You got to fight the bad guys and be like, okay, I get who you are. There's like a Russian side to me. And it's like, I don't have to talk to everybody. I don't have to show them my pain and frame it the right way. Just kill the bad guys and everybody will understand exactly what you mean. You know what I'm saying?
Amen. But while we're bringing up September 11th, by the way, that ties into the topic of the day as well, because there's a Qatar connection. And the Qatar connection is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who we know masterminded the 1993 truck bombing of the World Trade Centers. And then in 95 was found to be planning the bombing of American airliners in the Pacific in 1996 under, it was the Clinton administration. Am I right? Yes, it was under Clinton. Wanted to go and arrest him. He was in Doha. He was in Qatar. And And so the government was charged. This was all written about by Richard Clark, who was head of counterterrorism at the time. And they went to the military, said, can we do a snatch? Can we snatch him and then tell him? Because we're afraid if we tell him we're coming to get him, that he's going to disappear. And the military drew up this big plan. He wrote about this and published this. They drew up this big plan like they were invading Normandy. And that was their subtle way of saying, we don't want to do it. Okay, fine. This is pre 9/11, right? So this is 5 years earlier. So they decided we're going to go send our ambassador straight to the emir, tell the emir, we want to get this guy. He's a terrorist. He's a bad guy. We want you to tell this only to your head of security. Go grab this guy, give him to us. And that same day, he disappeared and he was off the map. And he, as everyone on this call probably knows, if you're old enough, maybe, I don't know, we got some young folks.
This is not a call. This is a live stream.
Live stream. Yeah, that's what we call it. He was the mastermind with Osama bin Laden of 9/11. So again, Qatar, this country of well-meaning do-gooders, according to Witkoff, I'm sure he's had sweet interactions with them. But you got to know your history. You got to know who
you get. $500 million, you feel a little sweeter about people.
You feel sweet, yeah. 663, yeah, right.
Whatever.
But yeah, so there's a 9/11 connection there. But also, terrorism needs to be understood as it is just one expression of war. It is a type of war. When there are terrorist acts coming at you, that is war.
They want to destroy Israel. Come on, what are we splitting hairs in for? It's so clear. All right, let's get through the comments just a little bit more, and then we gotta wrap it up. There's never been a prolonged period of peace in the world. Only a fool believes there will ever be peace. I think there's a peace at the end of time. I do believe that that at the end of time, God's consciousness will reign in this world, and I think there will be a time of peace. But you're not going to get it by laying down your arms.
Yeah.
I came up with this idea that Israel would start making these guns that within a few moves of the gun with those, it becomes a plowshare. Okay, nice. You just go and there it is. It's like actually a farming plowshare.
Yeah.
But then if there's a problem, it's back to being an Uzi. You know what I'm saying? So you can live the prophecy, but don't lay down your arms. All right, let's just do a few. Let's do like 3 more comments, please, if possible. And then I saw a comment that I liked. I think I saw from April Gonzalez, who writes, "Hello from Texas. Hello, April." She says, "Trying to genuinely isn't this technology amazing? Isn't this awesome? It's just so amazing." So hello, April. She says, "Trying to genuinely understand, why are certain secular Jews living in Israel bent on allowing outsiders to govern in the Knesset?"
2 words: ghetto mentality.
Yeah.
Ghetto mentality. They're not taking control over their own lives and their own future and the security of their own families and their own children. They're, this goes back to our days before the Romans crushed us too. I mean, we had Alexander's army come 2,300 years ago, and we paid our taxes to the Greeks. And then they got bad. We invited the Romans in to take their place. It turned out really bad for us. Took about 200 years, but it turned out really, really bad for the Jewish people.
But there were good times, and the best times were under King David and King Solomon, when Israel was strong, big, independent. But independent does not mean that you're a nation that dwells alone, in the sense that you don't need anybody else. But doesn't mean you don't do trade. It doesn't mean that you don't take.
Doesn't mean you don't have friends either. You have friends, you have allies, but you set your own agenda. You don't have a situation where you don't stockpile your own weapons, where you're not ready to fight your own wars, where you're not ready to defend your own borders. And Israel put itself in that situation prior to October 7th, where they said, we've got 7 fronts that we recognize, but we can rely on our friends in America, and we'll just keep enough arms and stockpiles for 1.5 fronts. And that's the situation it was in. You got to stockpile your ammo, your rifles, your tanks. And then you can, when the time comes and your enemies attack you, you don't have to ask someone, hey, can you give me some ammo? Can you give me some tank shells and artillery shells or plane bombs? No, you have it all yourself. Take care of business. And if you want to tell your friends, hey, by the way, I've got an enemy here that's threatening my family and killing my children, and I'm going to stop them. You let them know, hey, we're going to do it. And there were people who were saying right at the start of this, again, going back to Qatar, that if you want to get your hostages back after October 7th, you've got to put pressure on Qatar, because Qatar can put pressure on Hamas, and then you get your people back. And there's different ways to do it. And then there were some people who were saying, look what the Russians did in Lebanon in, was it 86, 87, when Hezbollah captured a member of the or a couple of them from the Russian embassy there. Well, they sent their KGB guys and captured some family members of Hezbollah and said, hey, give us back our guys if you care about your guys. And there were people who were saying, you know what, hey, the Emir's got some people he cares about too. If you want to put pressure on, you could do it in that way, or you could do it in the Russian way. There's a lot of ways to fight a war, and all's fair in love and war. And Israel's at war, and Israel's under war. So when you're under attack, you do what you need to do, and you defend your country, you defend your family.
That's right. That's the moral thing to do. Moshe Herman, my good friend, says Israeli arms independence is paramount. That's right. Our good friend. Yeah. Absolutely. And here's an interesting one. Shalom Aleichem, brothers. Can you address the idea that Bibi's continued embracing of hardliners like Ben Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich will result in Israeli isolation on the international stage? Well, I would say to that, first thing, I want you to know that I am a supporter of both Bezalel Smotrich and work together with Ben Gvir myself. That's number one. And so I don't believe that. And I actually believe the opposite. I think that when we embrace these kind of Middle East-like, more correct attitudes towards our enemies, we will gain respect. We'll gain respect. When we're weak, that's when we lose international support, because people stop believing that we mean what we say we want to do, because we're not doing it. So people stop believing that we're going to hold on to this land. They think that we're losers. And it's just like Megillat Esther, the scroll of Esther. When we're weak, they want to chop our heads off and kill us. And when we're strong, they're like, okay, we respect the Jews, and the Jews are strong and God is with them, and they, they're going to be victorious. I'd rather jump on that team. By the way, I just want
to add on to that, it's an excuse that people use. They're scapegoating those guys because they disagree with the policies that they stand for, which is that no part of Israel should be Yud and Rein, even though, the two-staters, which is a fake term that we can pick apart another time, want a part to be Yud and Rein. These guys say, no, we have to protect Jews' rights to live near the graves of our ancestors, the temples of our forefathers and mothers. So if they got a problem with those policies, if they've got a problem with this,
we got Ryan
on the call.
Ryan is actually with us. I can't believe this.
You don't fight a bully by being gentle. You send the message that Jewish blood is expensive, and make sure they don't want to pay that cost. God bless. Thank you, Ryan. I'm in. That's our friend who we were talking about before.
Here's a short version of that.
Peace through strength. Yeah,
it's a short way of saying that.
Yeah.
It's a short way of saying that, and then a short way of saying that is this. Okay.
There you go. When those people who criticize Ben Gvir and Smotrich, when you talk to them about the values, these are people who are generally coming from the left, and you talk to them about what values they say they stand for: religious freedom, civil rights. These are things that Ben Gvir and Smotrich stand for every single day. Why shouldn't a Jew be allowed to pray on the Temple Mount? Because we have to appease the jihadists? No, they say no. So someone who says, I come from the left, I'm a liberal, but being a liberal doesn't mean that you need to appease the jihadists, that you need to appease the Nazis and the people who want to suppress Jewish rights. When the Oslo Accords were signed, they were supposed to be protected Jewish rights to visit, talk about the graves of our forefathers.
Nobody's going to protect those rights, and certainly not a bunch of jihadis that want to destroy Israel. That's all just, and they're masters at cloaking themselves in a faux veil of liberalism and progressivism. It's faux. It's faux. It's just a fraud.
That's my point. Is these guys? If you talk to them about values, they shouldn't have any problem with Smotrich and Ben Gvir on the basis of values, without this weird twisting and hypocritical inversion. Yeah. Rank goes back.
And also just like stand up as a strong national state, like other states, like a Hungary, like a Poland, like stand up straight, stand up strong, and people will respect you. And by the way, Sana keeps writing that he wants me to come out to Ethiopia. Okay. You know what I mean? Maybe I will. God, we got to really send a lot of blessings towards Africa. And
Africa's also on the receiving end of the jihad. There's been a lot of violence.
It has been from the get-go, from the 600s.
Of course. I'm just talking in recent weeks.
Listen to this. Thanks for answering my question. By the way, I'm a Muslim Zionist.
God bless you.
Supports Israel. Thank you for all your advocacy. Look how cool that is.
There's 2 million Muslims in the entire Middle East who have civil rights and human rights. You know where they all live? In Israel.
Sadly, even those, many of them take advantage of Israel and do not use it in the right way, and they go towards the inclination to try to destroy Israel. Sadly,
but if the jihadists take a back seat, the golden age is right there at the doorstep,
and it's ours to force that. But you have to govern strong. And by the way, when you speak with Arabs, pro-Israel Arabs, they always say, "You guys aren't strong. You have to be strong. You have to be strong." Yeah. I mean, if you remember Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince, and the fox is like, tame me. You want to be my friend? You got to tame me. You got to bring me in. It's the same thing. It's like you want these people to live a decent life. You got to shut down the jihadism instinct. You got to make sure that it doesn't have a Instagram, and it doesn't have a mosque, and it doesn't have a school and a school book. You got to shut it down. You got to govern strong. It's the only way to do it. And there's another word. My colleague Noam Arnon says, Dr. Noam Arnon, he says, responsibility. And I've distilled it to governance.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is,
I use the word sovereignty.
Sovereignty also
boils down to, there was another fascinating thing. I know we're maybe running out of time here, but that came up in the hearing today. There was a question that was asked of one of the people who was being confirmed. Was it? I don't recall who it was to. I don't think it was to Huckabee. There were a few people in that hearing. But the question asked was, would you agree? It was, I recall who it was to, but I don't recall his name. Lawyer. Would you agree that this thing that they talk about, international law, statements by the UN, that we're not bound by that until we pass it as domestic law, or until we vote on a treaty with a 2/3 ratification in the Senate, because that's what our Constitution says. We're a sovereign of our own country. We're not bound by them. And that's, it was a powerful question and a powerful framing of the answer within the question, and a lesson that Israel needs to learn, because it's being told, you have to deny Jews the rights to live here. You have to deny Jews the rights to pray there. You have to deny Jews the rights to travel and visit graves here. And in the end, Israel has an ability as a sovereign under the rules of sovereignty that every country, every self-respecting country in the world knows, to say, it's my country. You can keep your opinions to yourself. I'm not going to suppress the rights of Jews in the land of Israel to make you happy for your twisted, contorted distortions that you're calling international law, because they're not international law. They're not even moral law. They don't even make any sense. But that's the language of the appeasers.
Last tiny video. I found it here. I think it's a part of a video we might have played, but let's just watch this.
Expressed support before for the West Bank being Israeli territory. So have you previously supported the idea of annexation of the West Bank?
I have previously supported it, yes, sir. Judea and Samaria.
He throws it right in there, which is, yes, I have supported Jewish rights in Judea. I got to do a media thing tomorrow, and I'm just gonna ask a simple question. When was the first time the term the Jewish state, when was the first time that was used?
In modern times, you mean? Or
did I say modern times? I said,
no.
When was the first time was it used?
I mean, in modern times, you think of Der Judenstaat from right. Herzl, but in right. ancient times, I mean, even I mean, it's biblical.
The Persian Empire,
right,
called Judea Yehud Medinta, Medinat Yehudim, Der Judenstaat. That's 2,500 years ago.
Yeah.
2,500 years ago, same piece of land. So it's called Judea. It's Jewish land. We got to hold on to it, be strong. We gotta connect with our heritage and our Bible. Amen. We got to honor these things. We've got to show leadership. We got to show governance. We got to kick out jihadis, deport them, fight them, convert them. And I mean convert in all the various ways you can understand that word. You got to, you basically, when you have an enemy, the enemy should have three options: either run away, submit to our rule and be a
live in peace,
or fight and die.
Those
are the three options.
That's it. And you could apply those to Gaza. You knock off that border fence with Egypt, with the Sinai, and say, anyone who wants to run, you run. Anyone who wants to stay and fight, you stay and fight.
Jake Bennett, you have a call to get to. I want to thank you very much for joining me today on the live stream. Very important. There's a lot of important messages that we discussed today. And And I think today, with the confirmation hearing of Mike Huckabee, we saw a message and a light that needs to be spread out to the world. That's why we went live today. I want to thank you very much, Jake, for being with us. I also want to thank all the folks that wrote so many comments and were with us and are doing their own form of celebration. Let's keep sending each other blessings. And thank you very much. And I'm sending you blessings from the Holy Land, the land.
I want to send a couple more as well. Let's send one right to Mike Huckabee. God bless him. And Marco Rubio. God bless him. Congressman Brian Mast in the Foreign Affairs Committee, who also has said every document here, we're going to refer to Judea and Samaria, not this term, the West Bank, that is an erasure of Jewish history and identity. Right. And to others in Congress as well, Claudia Tenney of the Judea and Samaria Caucus, who has a bill to do the same thing in American, all-American documents, to recognize Judea and Samaria by its name, not this fake name that came up in 1949, West Bank, that was just meant to erase history and identity.
That's right.
And to Senator Tom Cotton, who's got the companion bill over in the Senate. Blessings to all of them and to all of your listeners, and to you, Yishai, over there. Keep doing your amazing work.
All right, Jake, God bless you. God bless all the folks. Let's keep being strong. Thank you for providing us with so much facts and understanding, Jake. And that's it. Let's wrap it up. It's almost midnight here in the land of Israel. And let's continue to also pray for the safety and strength of our soldiers, the return of our hostages, the defeat of our enemies, and the blessings to all the good people around the world that want to be part of the light of Israel and the light of Jerusalem. God bless you, folks, wherever you are. Jake, once again, toda rabba, God bless you. Oh, and thank you very much to Yo, who was driving us today as our operator, as our producer. Thank you so much for being with us. And that's it. God bless you, folks. Continued strength from the land of Israel, and may the God of Israel join you in your home with your family and in your life, and guide you in good directions and good ways. God bless you, folks, wherever you are, and shalom.
Amen. God bless.